When we look at our plight as humans, we all have desires, we all have dreams, we all have preferences. We tend to set goals. We want stuff in life. And many of us have been conditioned to recognize like, oh yeah, I want a better job. I want more money. I want a bigger house. I want a relationship. I mean, you name it. The insight that came to me was, yeah, we want these things, but really what's true is that it's actually not the thing we want. We want the feeling we think we would have as a result of the thing. And we use the thing as the intermediary.
Welcome to Work Unscripted. I'm your host, Marlo Lyons. I'm here to toss aside the corporate scripts for unfiltered truths. We are tackling real work challenges with no sugarcoating, providing you with the strategies to thrive and find fulfillment in your career. It's time to turn the page. It's time to be unscripted. It's a new year, a time to start fresh, right? But for many of us, it's normal to feel stuck in last year's routine. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Amy Wong, the acclaimed author of Living on Purpose. Amy brings a refreshing approach to achieving fulfillment in work and in life that goes beyond the superficial. She is here to share how to make 5 deliberate choices that lead to profound joy and satisfaction. Her insights are a beacon for anyone seeking meaningful change. Amy, welcome to Work Unscripted.
Thank you for having me. I think we're going to have a lot of fun today.
We are. Happy New Year. It is the first of the year, and you are episode 1 of Work Unscripted.
I am so honored.
I'm so happy to have you. And I chose you to be my first guest today because today is the day, we both know this, millions of people around the world are making New Year's resolutions and they want to lose weight and they want to get a job and they want to change careers. And the year starts off promising until it's not. And then we beat ourselves up and we can't follow through or we can't accomplish what we want to accomplish. But your book, I read your book, Living on Purpose, and it really gives people that roadmap of how to make deliberate choices in their lives that will lead to fulfillment. Not choices about losing weight or getting a new job or finding a new career, but choices about true fulfillment in their lives and work. So I wanted to have you on the show because here we are, 2025, we're all living by default. At least that's what you were writing about, right? Most of us are living by default. What do you mean by that?
Well, default, another way to put it is autopilot, right? And it's that we're going through the motions day by day, not really in the driver's seat of our life. And said another way, it's a habit of reacting to stimulus versus responding to stimulus. And to me, there's no greater thrill than really being in the driver's seat of your own life.
That's true. And, is that like, when you say autopilot, is that like the treadmill, the hamster wheel that we're all on, where we're kind of like content, satisfied, but we're not really fulfilled?
Yeah, exactly. To kind of break it down and make it easy to understand, one of the things that hit me when I went through a really big breakthrough moment of my life, was I woke up to this, it seems like a truth to me. And I don't know if it's a truth, but I'll just share it as a truth. But what seems like a truth to me is that, when we look at our plight as humans, we all have desires, we all have dreams, we all have preferences, we all have, we tend to set goals. We want stuff in life. And many of us have been conditioned to recognize like, oh yeah, I want a better job. I want more money. I want a bigger house. I want a relationship. You name it. And the insight that came to me was, yeah, we want these things, but really what's true is that it's actually not the thing we want. We want the feeling we think we would have as a result of the thing. And we use the thing as the intermediary, but we don't really know that. We just stop at the thing. It's like, yep, I want the job. Yep, I want that really awesome position. Yep, I want the promotion. Yep, I want more money. And really, if we ask ourselves, like, what do we ultimately want? It's like, well, yeah, I want this thing. But if you ask why, and you keep asking why, it's going to come back to a feeling state. And so what I have decided is the most important thing for us is, well, what do we want to feel? What do we want to feel? And when you stop and you ask that question, okay, well, I want to feel significant. I want to feel at peace. I want to feel purpose. I want to feel meaning. I want to feel joy. I want to feel, I don't know, you fill in the blank. But when we get clear on that, then all of a sudden we kind of take stock and it's like, well, is my life representative of that? And are the things that I'm going after, is that a direct map to the feeling? And so this living by default is often an effect of not seeing the full map. And we stop at the thing and we chase the thing and we achieve the thing. And then we might end up with decent or even great lives on paper, but then we feel hollow and we feel unfulfilled. And then we can't figure out what to do differently because we did all the things we said we wanted to do. And so then it's, well, I got to get more stuff or I got a more promotion. And then we end up on this rat race, hamster wheel sort of thing. And what I have found in all the conversations I've had over the, decade plus is people become pretty conditioned to this feeling of discontent, right? We tolerate this feeling of mediocrity. And that's what I mean by autopilot. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been there at one point. Like, I know what that feels like. That kind of like, when can we have peace? Like, people are just looking for peace, I think. And I think that's what your book does, is like, it has 5 choices, but none of the choices are about, I'm going to make a choice to do something or get something. The choices are really about finding the fulfillment piece, that feeling. And let's dig into that. So for example, you say you need to feel it, not figure it out. So
yeah.
And that's hard for people, right? Because when I think, oh, I want a new career, I need to figure out what I want. I need to figure out, how to get it. I need to figure out, how to get recruiters to call me or whatever. That's not what people should be doing. They shouldn't be figuring it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're spot on. This idea of feeling it out versus figuring it out can sound either illogical, unreasonable, or scary. And take it from a mathematician. I mean, I am a master at logic. and
yeah, I mean, you are the analyst of all analysts, right?
So, in this breakthrough that came, it's the reason, and so the wisdom behind this statement, feel it out, don't figure it out, is this. It's mapping back to what we were just talking about. So if everything we want really is for a feeling, if we take that as a consideration that is possibly true, it's like, okay, well, if everything I want is for a feeling, and then I set off to go achieve that feeling, I'm going to use things in the process to get me to that feeling. But if we don't make that full map, if we don't fully check out for ourselves, is this promotion I'm chasing going to lead me to the peace of mind and the balance and the joy that I'm looking for? Now, if we don't ask ourselves that, what's happening is that we are figuring out our path to the next step that we think is the right choice. It's the right path. It's going to lead us to the promised land. But because we haven't checked it out for ourselves, what it might often ends up happening is you'll likely achieve the thing and then feel, oh, okay, well, that's not it. Okay, so then I figure out the next thing and I figure out the next thing and I figure out the next thing. And so figuring it out, what that means, it's following the path of stuff that's devoid of the question, what do you want to feel? Now, figuring it out answers, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we genuinely want fulfillment and meaning and joy and purpose and peace of mind, we have to ask, what do I want to feel? So that the difference is, okay, well, then if I'm not going to figure it out, well, then what's the other option? Well, I got to feel it out. And that is interesting because it's different.
Yeah. How do you do that? Like, give an example. How do you do that? Because I think that's a new concept for a lot of people. We're used to figuring it out. We're used to analyzing, synthesizing, drawing pros and cons lists, feeling it out. If I've never done that before, what does that look like? Give me an example.
So the difference between feeling it out and figuring it out requires that really we have to navigate in a different way. And what that requires is we have to pay attention to what's going on in our body. And the reason for that is because, when you think about feeling it out, it hinges on a feeling. Feeling is something that's felt in the body. Now, when we're figuring something out, most of the energy is in our head. And we can feel that. When you're busy analyzing, strategizing, calculating, and processing it, and just reflect on this for yourself. You can tell that there's a lot of frenzy up here between your ears, and most of your awareness is up here, and there's a lot of activity going on. And that's fun, and it can be great, and that can actually feel good too sometimes. But what feeling it out requires us to kind of drop down lower into our body and notice what's going on here. Now, what I've decided is that one of the best ways, and it's proven accurate for myself and everybody else that's tried this out, is that I've mapped this process of feeling it out to kind of this universal principle of how the universe is expanding. So we know that the universe is expanding by virtue of expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction, expansion and contraction. If you look at the nature of reality, we are a nature of duality. There's light and there's dark. There's birth and there's death. There's up and there's down, right? So there's this expansion and contraction. There is this phenomenon that happens as a creative force here in our plane of existence. And so this expansive versus contracted force is what we're really feeling out for. And so feeling it out is sensing for, if I'm considering something, do I feel expansive or do I feel constricted?
Got it. It's that energy.
Yeah. Is there a sense of relief when I consider this option? Does the energy feel a little lower in my body? Does it feel like and relief is a really good indicator. Like, do I feel a little bit of relief here? It's like, it's just a sense of ease, flow. Now, here's the funny thing I have found when I am considering really important options, right? And big decisions in my life. And I'm doing a big, I'm really working hard to like, okay, am I figuring this out? Am I feeling it out? What is the path of least resistance? Where is their most expansive energy? Oftentimes it's not the sexy choice. So my head, who wants to figure out all the ins and the outs and calculate and strategize, is going to try to talk me into believing that I'm feeling out this sexy choice. And every time I choose counter to and here it is, my gut. And that's what we're going for. Like and here's a great way to know that you're feeling it out is how you talk to yourself. Right.
Yeah.
If you say, gosh, this feels right. Ooh, this feels solid. Oh, this feels like home. Oh, I'm sensing, some real relief here. When we say I feel versus I think, or I feel versus it sounds like, this sounds like a good idea. That's figuring it out.
So this really requires people to pause. It requires people to stop. It requires them to acknowledge the feeling, because if you don't pause and stop, that feeling happens and you ignore it.
Yes.
And that's what most of us do, right? We ignore that feeling. Like, I'm invited to a party and I don't really want to go. And I know I don't want to go, but I start debating why I should go. And then I think I should go. And then I go. And then, maybe I have a great time, right? But the point is, I didn't really want to go. And I ignored that feeling of meh. Yeah. Like, I didn't want to do it. Now, here's my question though.
Yeah.
What if I don't want to do the laundry? Like, what if I don't want to, what if I don't want to, or what if I'm in a bad situation at work and I just don't want to look for a job? Right?
Yeah. Well,
like, it's a lot of work.
Waking up. Yeah, I love this question because, again, all of this, what you're describing, just blowing through the moment, not sensing, that is autopilot. That's living by default. And the real art to this is recognizing that the chief source of failure is choosing what you want in the moment over what you really want. And so this is why waking up is so important. It's like, well, what do I really want to feel? Now, because it's not what do I want to do? What do I want to feel? And if you said, I really don't want to do laundry right now. Well, check it. I mean, so the second choice on my book is there is no way things should be. So maybe you don't do laundry that evening. Fine. Right. Who cares? Like, it's up to you.
Do it later. Yeah.
But the reality is, I would imagine that you want to feel peace of mind. You want to feel flow in your home. You want to feel ease. And so when you bring that awareness into the equation, it's like, I actually want to feel at ease. I want to feel accomplished. You're going to have a whole new insight. And your insight might be, actually, I am just going to get this laundry done. Or it might be,
well, because I want choices. Maybe I want the ease of a choice, right? Yeah. And if nothing's folded, then I don't know where anything is, right? So I have to look deeper is what you're saying. That's it. I have to look at that deeper choice. And you said choice number 2 is there's the choice is that there's no way things should be.
That's right.
This is a big one. Like you talk about how should be banned from our language. I also think why should be banned from our language, by the way, because why is very accusatory, but should is very similar to that. So, what about should is such a bad word?
So I have found since the book has come out that hands down, this is everybody's favorite chapter.
Oh, I love this chapter.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, Marlo, I was tickled with myself when I came up with the title for the chapter. And I'll tell you now, it's I Should You Not. Isn't that so great? I Should You Not. I love this. I love this title. Okay. So what's going on here? We've all been bamboozled by this word as a motivator. And I think the reason is because we've been conditioned as children, you should clean your room, you should do your homework, you should practice piano, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. And we associate living the good life with this motivator, the word should. But there's a lot of stuff going on under the covers of this word. And the first thing I want to point out is just notice how it makes you feel. So if I say, Marlo, you should make your bed every day, and
it just made me feel bad if I didn't make my bed.
Right. And you should meditate every single day. And, you shouldn't eat so much cheese. And, you should.
And now I feel bad if I didn't do it every day. Right. Yep. And I feel bad if I ate cheese. Yeah. It just makes you feel bad.
It makes you feel bad. So, and then we ask, well, why? And more importantly, if it makes us feel bad, why do we keep doing this to ourselves? And so and the first part of this is the word should implies there's some fixed reality outside of ourselves that represents the standard utopian ideal. That says, if you're going to live the good life and be the good person and do it just right, you got to follow it just like this. And then you have to stop and you're like, wait a minute, but is there a big book of shoulds in the sky that tells me exactly how this thing called life is supposed to go? And when you really take a step back, like we can get super philosophical here, but the truth is we don't know anything about existence. We have hypotheses and theories, and we call them laws, and they're essentially agreements on what we think's going on.
We have perceptions. We have the human take on what we believe. That's what religion is, right? That's what
exactly.
It's the human perspective on it, right?
Right. They're agreements. And so, what happens is that we hold ourselves underwater to this imaginary ideal that we don't even really check out for ourselves. That there is no utopian ideal out there that says, if I'm going to do it right, I got to do it like this and this and this and this and this. This process has to be just like this. Oh, there is no way things should be. So that's the first interesting aha. Now, and I want to take that a little farther though, because some people, but wait, hold on. I'm like, look, we as humans, we make agreements on how we want to cooperate and coexist, right? And so how does this work? We make agreements to drive on the right side of the road in the US. We make agreements to drop the states in certain ways. We make agreements to put our kids in school around age 5. We make agreements not to kill. We make agreements not to steal. We make agreements on how to work with all of these sorts of laws that we've put in place. I like those agreements. But is there a should reality that represents how we need to be operating? No, there's not. And so just waking up to that is important.
I was going to say, what do I do if I'm shoulding then? If all day I'm saying, oh, I should get up and go work out. I should look for a new job. I should write to 4 different recruiters today. I should get this project done. Like, I'm afraid I'd never get off the couch if I didn't should.
Well, and the only way you're going to pivot away from this habit is if you understand what's really going on with the word. So in addition to this false ideal, here's what's really going on. In most cases, not all, but in most cases, what happens with the word should is that we've tricked ourselves into thinking that we are optimally motivating ourselves in the vision of the direction of what we actually want. And so just for the sake of argument, let's create a scale, and let's imagine a scale that maps all the emotions we could ever feel. Here's neutral. Here's all the positive emotions. Here's all the negative emotions. Now, just for the sake of argument. Okay. Now, if we map emotions, right? Something that we talked about earlier is, we all want to hang out up here. I think that's just a human desire to be above the neutral line. We want to feel good. We don't like
You just said should. Yeah, we all want to hang out up here.
No, I said we all likely want to hang out up here.
We all likely want to hang out up here. Okay.
Yeah. So we all likely want to hang out up here. We tend to not want to be down here, right?
Right.
Okay, so if you take this scale, what's fascinating is that everything below neutral is caused by one thing. And when you understand this, man, it's a game changer. But everything below neutral, every single negative emotion is simply caused because here in your now moment, you resist what is. The moment you resist what is, boom, you drop below neutral. And to the degree that you push is to the degree that you're negative.
Wow. So
yeah.
When I'm below neutral and I'm not feeling good, you're saying I'm resisting something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I am resisting.
All negativity is born out of resistance to reality in some way, shape, or form. And check it out for yourself. Take anything that you feel negative about and notice that it's born out of the pushing against what is.
Interesting. Okay, so if I am resisting, then I'm also not being resilient in whatever the situation is. So I could be resisting change in the office. I could be resisting, and that takes up so much more energy, right? Like that resistance.
And that's the key. Yes. So not only are you eating up your own bandwidth, you're keeping yourself below neutral, which is exactly what we don't want in life. We want to be up here, right? And so, in a bigger conversation about this, when one starts to wake up to, whoa, okay, so all of my negativity is rather self-imposed. Yeah. So then it leads to the question, well, then what's resistance? How do we resist? There's a couple of ways in which we resist. But one of the hallmark indicators that resistance is in play is the word should. Here's why. If I take this scale and I flip it on its axis, okay? So just for the sake of argument, let's say everything I don't want in the world is on this side of me, okay? And that's debt and rejection and missed opportunity and failure and, that's the stuff I don't want. And then let's imagine everything I do want in the world is on this side of me. That's love and joy and the big house and the vacation home and everything I do want. Okay, now, here's what's going on with should. In most cases, not all, but in most. When we use the word should, I should go to the gym. We'll use your example. We've tricked ourselves into thinking we're moving in this direction, right? Now, what's in this direction? This direction is health, longevity, flexibility, energy, youthfulness, strength, endurance. Now, but if I say I should go to the gym, that is not in my awareness. What's 100% in my awareness if I say I should go to the gym is I'm facing the stuff I don't want, which is what? My jeans feel tight, right? And I use resistance to push away negative consequences and it's kind of effective because which way am I going? I'm going this way, but it comes at a cost. First, I'm pushing, which keeps me below neutral. It eats up my resources, so I have less bandwidth for creativity and energy. And more importantly, I'm just looking at all the stuff I don't want. Not very creative, not very generative. And so I can slug myself to the gym, and I will under should, but it's the path of most resistance to the least abundance. You can act, but you'll get very little return on should. And so the flip here, and really the big aha is that on every flip side of a should, on every flip side of pushing against negative consequences is a want. Like, what's the vision I actually want, right? I'm not here to push against the fact that my jeans feel tight. I'm not here to push against the fact that I ate too much cheese last night and I feel guilty. I'm here because I'm about longevity and youthfulness and strength. Now, the moment I make that pivot and I ask myself, no, not going to should on myself. Well, what do I want? Wait, I want to feel good. I want to feel strong. I want to feel energized. Now, the moment I've released the resistance, that opens me up to flow. And by making the pivot and focusing on what I want. Now, remember, on this side of me is a vision of everything I want in the world. And there's a lot of stuff here. I want to be connected to friends. I want to be out in nature. I want peace of mind. I want ease. And so in the process of pivoting, when I recognize actually what I really want to feel is strong and flexible and energized and good in my skin, it's a beautiful day. I'm going to call my friend and see if she wants to go on a hike. And then all of a sudden, we have energy and inspiration and the ambition and the insight to act. And this is the path of least resistance to the most abundance.
And this goes back to that pause thing, right? When I ask people, what do you want, right, in their career, I literally get, well, I have these skills and I can transfer these skills and I can do this. And then I said, no, I didn't ask you what you can do. I asked you, what do you want? And they look at me like I have three heads. So this goes back to that pause of really sitting down and understanding what you truly want, not what society is telling you that you think you should want.
Bingo. And notice there's that should, right? Should according to who?
Yep. Should
according to who? And where we get a lot of information and where we make big strides in our life is when we ask, what do I want to feel? Right? Because when that becomes illuminated, all of a sudden the stuff that can lead us there starts to become a bit more evident.
This is a ha-ha moment. And it kind of leads to choice number 3, because when I think about all the people writing on LinkedIn saying, I'm desperate, I don't have a job, I'm frustrated, I've applied to 100 places, they're sitting in resistance, right?
Yeah.
But what they're not doing, which is choice number 3, which is choose to know that it's always working out for you.
Yeah. 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 And this
That's
is
hard.
It is. And it's a choice.
That's hard in your soul. I mean, you've lost your job, you're running up credit card bills, you can't pay your food and rent, right? Like you've applied to hundreds of jobs. How can I possibly believe that it's always working out for me?
So this choice is profound because and by the way, this is a choice. And going back to this idea that this roadmap of choices, to your point earlier, this is not choice at the level of action. This is choice at the level of perception. And this is something we can and we get to choose. Is it a truth? I don't know, but it's a choice. Now check this out. If you choose it. Now, what does it mean to choose that it's always working out for you? It's a frame that you recognize that, life isn't happening to me. It's happening for me. And we don't grow just in the light. We actually grow in the dark too. If you look at the nature of reality and you take a beautiful oak tree, right? Or you take any sort of incredible garden, you have this garden and it creates these beautiful blooms, but in order to get there, it had to get in dark, stinky soil. And so there's this, and if you look at the nature of your own life and how you've grown, yes, you've grown in the light because of all the things that were on purpose that you've created and you attempted and it worked, but then you grew on accident with all the stuff you didn't plan that were failures. But you grew very significantly as well. And so what this choice hinges on is a very real phenomenon that, and I'm just going to step you through this. So let's take you in your now moment right now. Okay. At this day and age. Now, you know how that situation is where you'll be in this day and age and then you look back to your past and you consider something that was really not great and maybe even awful when,
I can tell you something that wasn't great.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I was fired. I was fired at 26. And I was angry and I was sad and I was frustrated.
Great example.
Absolutely.
That's a great example, right?
And lots of people have been fired and I'm sure they feel the same way, right? You're like, what happened? Right? Especially if you put a long time in a company. Now, I had only been there a couple of years, but still, I was off the rails in that moment.
Right. Now, for many of us, and I don't know of any individual that doesn't end up saying a form of what I'm about to say, is that we can look back to our past and we can go back to that point and we say, that really sucked and it wasn't fun. And I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have learned this and I wouldn't have met this person and I wouldn't have tried this and I wouldn't have da. And we can narrate for ourselves how it was on purpose for being where we are today, the values that we have, the beliefs that we hold, the people that we've met. And so from this vantage point, we look back and we look upon it with appreciation and purpose and meaning, saying, it wasn't fun, but I actually wouldn't change it. Now, I think back to my most horrific, life experience, and I would never wish it for anyone. And yet, would I go back and redo it? No, because I would not be here doing the work I do if it wasn't for that extremely intense period in my life. And so there was purpose in that.
And you talk about that in the book. You walked through that, and you had a pretty severe eating disorder, right? And, similar to being fired, right? It's the worst thing that it feels like in your world. I mean, in your world, that was all consuming.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And when you're fired, it is all consuming, trying to find a job, try to pay the bills, trying to, keep everybody alive and okay.
Right.
Right. And it ruins whatever plans you have and everything you want to do. And it's literally takes over your life. Mm-hmm. But when you look back today, what do you think you learned from that?
Well, in my experience, the powers of reflection, the power of development, the curiosity into what it means to thrive, to truly understand many of the distinctions that I live, breathe, and eat and teach and offer today would not have been possible if I did not experience the contrast that I did at that period in my life. And so I would never go back and take that away from myself. Now, for this choice, I'm calling upon this phenomenon because life is completely uncertain. Change is the only thing that's constant. Nothing is permanent. We cannot predict the future. And we do live in a realm of duality. So there's light and dark and pain and joy. And so we have to experience all of it. And it is we grow in the light and in the dark. So now in my now moment, if I start experiencing a really unideal, awful moment, and let's say I get fired now. Okay, well, with this perspective that, hey, I'm fired now and this is awful, but at some point in the future, I'm going to look back at this and I'm going to be able to make sense of how this was on purpose. So instead of waiting for your future self to tell you how your crap turns out now, you actively turn this into manure. Right. It's not stinky. It's not unwanted. It's manure. Manure stinks, but it's fertilizer. And so in our now moments, we embrace the light and the dark and see it as on purpose because it's feeding us somewhere wonderful, because it always has. So why assume it's going to stop? I'm like, is it a truth? I don't know, but it's a choice. And if we make this choice, we lessen resistance, which allows for more creativity, more positivity, and more abundance. I mean, and for me, I want to be up here more often than not. Now, of course, I'm not going to avoid being down here. That's life. But if I have the choice to turn these moments into something meaningful and convert resistance to appreciation, why not? Because appreciation feels so much better than resistance.
It does. Yeah, it does. And you're right. I mean, it took me probably 10 years to realize what I learned from that. I mean, I am the first person to tell anybody that I will thank that boss. I didn't care for that boss, but I will thank him because I learned so much from being fired. It took me a while to figure it out. Right. Yeah. And because I wasn't as self-aware. In fact, that was the beginning of becoming self-aware. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you can look at that situation, whatever situation you're in right now, and try to figure out what you're supposed to learn from it, it does bring that appreciation a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. And that will raise you. Right. It raises you up. But that also means taking out that negative mindset that firing or that situation that you're going through today means that you're not whole, you're not complete, that there's something wrong with you. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me, right? And that's your choice number 4, which is know your completeness. And there's a difference here. This is what I found fascinating. You said, I can't believe that I'm whole. I have to know that I'm whole. What is the difference?
Wow. So choice number 4 is you have to choose to know that you're already whole and complete. And then the 5th choice is no, don't believe your worth, right? So they kind of work together. And so here's something that I was able to discern in the process of many, many different conversations. And I attribute kind of my mathematician mind in breaking this down, because when the moment I saw this, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a big deal. This is a big deal. But when, really what this hinges on. So to know your wholeness is to essentially say, I choose to know that I am complete as I am. That doesn't make me perfect. It just makes me complete. It makes me enough. It makes me resourceful and resilient. Not excellent, but just complete. Now, knowing it is a choice that I make unconditionally, meaning I'm not using outside evidence to validate this assertion that I am making for myself. The moment I need evidence, I need conditions, I need validation to prove that I am enough, now I'm in belief. Now I'm saying I believe I'm good enough. Now I believe I'm whole. I believe I'm worthy. Now, it's a better step than not having it at all. But here's the trap in belief. If your sense of self is in the paradigm of belief, your sense of self is now conditional. And now you need conditions to validate your sense of self, which means I need certain things to be just so. I need this kind of evidence and this kind of evidence and this kind of evidence in order to validate.
I need somebody to tell me I'm great at my job, to know that I'm great at my job.
Right. And we want data to give us the information that we're on track and that our impact matches our intention and we're producing the results that we want. But we want to separate getting feedback and information from evidence of self-worth, evidence of enoughness. Now, here's the trap. If your sense of self-worth, your worthiness, your enoughness, your completeness is conditional, you will never be free because of the nature of proof itself. Because if I need proof, let's just say I need proof in my hand to validate that I'm good enough. Well, the nature of proof is such that there's always the counterproof. That's what makes it proof. It needs to be distinct up against its counterproof. So if I need to go search for a certain kind of amount of proof, like a certain kind of validation, a certain kind of number, a certain kind of Well, in order to experience and see it, it has to be up against its opposite. So the moment I go and achieve it, there's the counterproof. Oh, got to get more. Oop, there's the counter. Oh, got to get more. Yeah, got to get more. And so this is why people end up on a hamster wheel. Well, it's the next job. It's the next promotion. Well, when I start my own company, when I go public. No. Actually, when I retire, then I'll be free. Because that's the false thinking, is I'll finally get free when I get to the final set of proof. But the moment you meet that proof, there's the counterproof. Got to keep going. Got to keep going. And so we never, ever, 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 ever achieve a sense of peace and fulfillment, deep fulfillment.
But Amy, doesn't this also stop us from doing the things we want to do? When I think about this, like, I almost didn't do this podcast because I wondered, like, what would people think? What would people, would they judge me? Would they have disdain? Would they disapprove? Would I be embarrassment? Would I fail? Right? It's that primal fear of rejection, right? And right. I just wanted to stay in my bubble and protect myself, right? Do my coaching and be with my clients. And that was it, right? And it's that imposter syndrome that I think everybody thinks they have, or they think everybody else doesn't have and they have, right?
And that's all born out of, so that imposter syndrome is born out of a belief that you're not good enough. Right. And it's belief. So you're needing proof. And so it's this, so you're chasing and it's riddled with a lot of fear. And there's a lot of weight with this, and it keeps us procrastinating. And there's a lot of habits that come with that. But to address your question of, if I come home to myself and know that I'm whole and complete, now the world just becomes the world and nothing looks like proof for or against my enoughness. So I am free. And in this place of freedom, now all that's left is passion and joy and clarity. And because I am so clear in who I am, all I see is what's possible. And because I'm not afraid of being found out as not good enough, I have nothing but energy and motivation to go make the change that I feel so inspired to do. Because guess what? I have a vision of what's wanted. But now I have nothing holding me back from going and achieving that. And you have nothing but motivation and desire to live an incredible life. And then it becomes a life of service, because the moment you come home to yourself, then you can't help. It's service, not self. But when we're trapped in belief, it's all about proving ourselves safe, proving ourselves acceptable, proving ourselves self-worthy. But the moment you break free from that, now you see the possibility in serving others. It's just inevitable, because here's actually the truth. The moment you choose to know yourself as whole, when you look out to the world, you can't help but see everybody else as whole too. Now, yes, they're riddled with fears and beliefs and survival mechanisms, but you see it clearly, which means you now don't take anything personal. And yes, you get feedback. And yes, you take the data that you get from others if you step on others' toes. And yes, you live a life of integrity. And yes, you're constantly course correcting, but it's not threatening. It's not threatening. And because now you look out and you see everybody really is whole and complete, you can't help but have this deep desire to serve and deep desire to create. And so my own experience, and those that I know that have gone through this process, will say, hands down, the amount of energy and ambition and joy and passion just goes through the roof. So this fear that, if I don't prove, where's my motivation going to come from? It's wild.
How do you keep that in your brain? How do you get your brain to stay there, right? And not keep going back to this belief part, right? Because if I'm trying to prove something to somebody, right, then I'm believing, I'm not knowing, right? But right. How do I stay in that knowing?
So I talk about this in the book, and it kind of maps back to this very important tenet of feeling that, in my experience, I've just had to decide, and I offer this as a chapter, and I've even titled it, it's just, you've got to be intolerant of feeling crappy. And so what the decision I have made is I'm intolerant of feeling crappy, recognizing that I am the only one doing it to myself. Now, does that take away tragedy, trauma, grief? No, absolutely not. Life is going to happen, and I'll get triggered, and I'll get angry, and I'll feel this, but I don't stay there. I give myself 90 seconds to glean the wisdom of what's in this negative emotion, but I'm using it as data. Okay, now what do I want to do with this? And so when it comes back to this question, how do you stay there? It has come from a fundamental decision. I'm just done feeling crappy. because I get that I'm the only one doing it to myself. So I've become sensitive enough to recognize when I get in approving mode. And how do I know? Because the energy starts to come up here and I get a little frenetic and I get a little people pleasing and I get a little this and I'm sensitive to that. And I can tell that I'm venturing off into the bushes. Oh, there she goes. It's like, whoa, come back. I got this. I know I'm whole and complete. And I know what I stand for. And now I go forth.
And so that's the same when you fail at something, right? Like if I fail at something or if I make a mistake or I have a setback, so I'll just use, dieting because that's a big thing on January 1, right? If 2 weeks from now I have a binge or something and I, have a setback, or if I get fired this week or I've been fired, I have to just make a decision. You're saying this is a choice. Like,
bingo.
I'm not going to feel bad about this and I'm just going to move forward.
That's it. And that's the whole magic of what we're talking about. It's the power of choice. And like, how powerful does that feel to know that we are in the driver's seat? It's not the world out there that determines our well-being. It's not the world out there that determines our quality of life. We get to choose. And we take our power back when we harness choice at this level. Yeah.
So let me recap all the choices just to make sure everybody heard them, right? And you should get the book for sure. We'll talk about that in a second. But choice 1, feel it, don't figure it out. Choice 2, choose to know there is no way things should or shouldn't be. Choice 3, choose to know it's always working out for you. Choice 4, choose to know your completeness. And choice 5, choose to know not believe in your worth.
That's right. That is right.
And so, Amy, 2 weeks from now, my New Year's resolution has already gone by the wayside. I failed at something. What do I do in that moment?
Well, so I'll ask you, what choice immediately becomes present for you when you are getting this data that, oh, okay, this isn't the commitment that I made. I didn't see the commitment out, right? What choice immediately pops up for you?
The choice of what do I want, right? Which of the choices? I would say, what's the feeling that I want, right?
Yeah.
And let's get back into that feeling. And then, there's not, as I always like to say, life isn't linear, right? Nothing should or shouldn't be, right? That's your should or shouldn't be. And then not believe in myself. I'm sorry. This is no bearing on my worth or my value.
Woo!
No bearing.
That's it.
All it means is that I'm going to get back on the horse tomorrow because I still want that feeling. Here I go. All right.
Bingo.
I love it.
Bingo. And
it.
notice how much better that feels than beating yourself up over not seeing out what you said you should be doing.
Feels amazing already. Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. And and one more thing, if you feel like I just need one more, you can also tell yourself, and this is working out for me, because experiencing the contrast of this moment of not seeing out my agreement with myself doesn't feel very good. And this is giving me the leverage to truly make the decision to change. And so we can take these moments as on purpose too.
There we go. Exactly. Yeah. Amy, you have inspired me at the beginning of this year, 2025. You have inspired me so much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, your experience. Again, I want everybody to know the book is Living on Purpose. You need this for 2025. This book is going to change your life and get all those negative thoughts out of your head. And the second part of this is, so it's Living on Purpose, 5 Deliberate Choices to Realize Fulfillment and Joy. You can find it on Amazon, everywhere books are sold. And Amy, where can people find you? I know you are a coach and you coach in these areas. So where can people find you?
Yeah. So my website's Always on Purpose. Lots of resources there. And I hang out on LinkedIn. You can find me I'm there quite often. And that's pretty much the only place I hang out at the moment. Because that, to me, that's what feels good.
Perfect. Thank you again for joining. And I'm wishing you fulfillment and joy in the new year. Work Unscripted is produced and edited in partnership with the team at Palm Tree Podco and 21 Digby. The content for this week's episode was created by me, Marlo Lyons.